All right, welcome back. My name is Chris, and we are going to be looking at the market analyzer in NinjaTrader. If you're not excited about this thing, trust me that by the end of the video, you are going to be, and you're going to be a believer in this thing as much as I am once we get it working for you. So we have a lot of customizations to do with this. The good thing is that we can save it all as templates so that we never have to do it again. So there is going to be a little bit more upfront work, but it's going to save you so much time, and it's going to present you with opportunities. It's going to make your trading a lot easier, and it's basically going to be your workhorse. So let's get into it. Let's start looking at this thing. Right now, we are going to start from the very beginning, which is taking our control center window, and we're going to go to new in the top left and come all the way down to market analyzer. This is going to open up a really ugly black looking window that seems totally useless, but I guarantee you it won't be. Now we are running this video in 4K. So if you are watching this full screen, it's going to look really nice, but let's right click and we'll go down to properties. Okay. And we're going to bump up this font size for you. If you are not with good eyesight, or you want to have less strain on your eyes, there you go. So it's going to be a bit bigger now, and I'm going to add in one instrument by right clicking on my chart, going to add instrument. I'm going to select we'll take an oil contract, why not. This is your basic market analyzer. It has a ask price, bid price, and last price. I think all this stuff is totally useless for me right now, so we're going to go ahead and configure that. But what I'm going to do first is we are going to talk about how we arrange it if we have multiple instruments. So if we have lots of this, if this whole window is filled up, how do we arrange this? My recommended way is by doing it by asset class. So let's go ahead and right click on this. We're going to say add label row, and we're going to call this one futures. So just double click inside of it, and you can move this row by clicking and dragging it up. We move that up to where it says up at the top, just above the oil contract, and we can add in another one, and I'm going to call this one Forex. Okay, we're going to bring that down, and we're going to put it below the oil contract, and I'm going to add another instrument, and we are going to pick one from our FX list here. I'll take the first one in Aussie Canadian dollar. Okay, so now we have a futures and a Forex. You can start to see how we might group these if we had several instruments under each one, and why it'd be useful that way. You can also go in, you can right click on your properties, and you can change your label row in here so that the background is not transparent, but maybe you want it to be yellow, and you want the foreground now, it'd be hard to see it, that color, as transparent. No, that's not gonna work. Make it black. Anyways, that stands out a little bit more, but you can see if you had a whole bunch of instruments why you might want to lay it out like that. Also, if you start using, if you see the market analyzer behind here that's pink, purple, and blue, you can actually color code your cells, and when you have them all color coded, sometimes leaving your background as black can make the label row pop as well when you have multiple ones. So you might not have to change it, but you always have that option. Okay, so next, what we want to do is start to configure these columns. These columns are going to be what makes the market analyzer more interesting for you. So I think it's really important that we just take a second to configure all these the way we want, and it's where you're going to be spending most of your time. So if we right click, you'll see an option titled columns right there, and you're going to click it, and a menu is going to appear, and this is where you're going to spend most of your time. Now we are going to remove the configured columns already that you have there by default. So right now we have ask price, bid price, and last price. I don't want them, maybe you do, but I do not want them there. That's going to be something, if you want to keep them, you can. So maybe, and we'll start configuring this from a more basic standpoint. These are all our configurable columns. So there's tons of stuff that you can explore, but some of them are going to be more useful than others. For instance, one of the ones I like to have, and it's so simple to add, is notes. So you can press OK, and we'll go through a bunch of these that you can use. But underneath these columns, we can just start typing now and saying, watch this one. Okay, so you can add in your own notes into your market analyzer, it just as a way to maybe check back on things. But that's going to be up to you on if you think a notes column would be handy. I personally like having one, but very easy. There's nothing really to configure with that one. There's a lot of these columns where you do have more to configure them with. So let's start it with picking an indicator. So indicators aren't their own column. There isn't a column for every indicator. There is one column called indicator, and you'll double click on that. It will toss it down to the configured item. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pick the indicator up at the very top. So let's just say we had something basic was a popular one people always seem to use. I don't use any of these, but we'll toss RSI in there. So I hit apply, and you can see here that we have our instrument notes, which we'll remove because we don't need to take notes on it right now. And we have our RSI. This is a 1 minute chart we're on. So if we want to change that, we'll come down here and we'll look at the type, and we can pick our chart type, and then we'll say how many minutes. So maybe it's 1 minute, maybe it's a 5 minute. We'll go with that. Maybe it's a tick chart, whatever it is. And then when you press apply, you'll see that you're going to have the RSI value for oil and the Aussie Canadian dollar. So that's really interesting. If you are into RSI, to be able to see all these at a glance and to see maybe if any of them are over 70 or below 30 or whatever criteria you might use, to be able to spot that on those charts. Now there is going to be a lot easier of a way to spot these. And this is when we get into a whole bunch of new settings. So most of these are going to be the exact same. That's what the indicators. So you have your period for RSI, you have your smoothness, you have your chart details, how many days of past data you want to look at. This is very common where if you go to your chart and go into your indicators, you will be able to see these exact same settings. Now there are going to be some that are a little bit different. So underneath the visual, you'll be able to see some new things there, as well as our sell conditions. We have a sell condition and a filter condition, and we're going to start looking at these two. This is going to be a little bit more advanced, but it's going to be what makes your market analyzer totally worthwhile. Okay, now for this, what we're going to do is we're going to toss in a whole bunch more features and a whole bunch more FX. And we are going to blow this thing up. Now remember how I said we were going to use these columns? So our 4x one doesn't start until down here. Okay, so you can see how this is becoming more practical. And we'll make this window bigger. So right now we have all our instruments and we have RSI. So like I said, you might be somebody that finds RSI more interesting if it's over a certain value. For simplicity's sake, we're just going to do an over 50 and under 50. Okay, so we're going to go into our columns and we are going to go to our RSI. We're going to come down here to where we have cells, and this is where we get to add in our own conditions. We're going to add one now, and it basically has something that's pretty popular for you. It says change cell if value is equal to 0. So we don't want that. What we want to do is we want to say if it is less than, or we'll say less than or equals to 50, then it's going to change the background. I have this reddish pink color I like, and we're going to make this black. Okay, so that's one condition. Now, we said less than or equal to 50. So that's 50 and below. Now we're going to say if we are 50 or greater than 50, so every number above 50, we are going to make this green with a black background. Now, we're leaving this text field blank because we don't want anything to overwrite what's there. We want to see the value of RSI. And we're just going to press OK, and we will hit apply. Now you're going to see this take a second. It's going to change all these RSI values to a different color depending on the cell conditions we just had. Now this looks rather ugly, but typically you probably have a few more columns, or your market analyzer would be smaller, not such a full screen, so you wouldn't see just one big line going across, but it's already starting to look very useful. Now, we know that the green ones are, let's just say, the ones we want to pay attention to. Maybe you might want to change that where it's above 60. You can play with these to set it up the way you want. But what I'm going to do here, remember how I said the value is going to be there if the text field is left blank. Let's just say because it's under 50, I have no interest in seeing it, right? I don't want to see what number is there. So I'm just going to put a dash. And then I'm also going to change this so that it's less than 60, because I'm trying to filter things down to see the things I'm most interested in. And we're going to say if this is greater than 60, and we're going to leave the value there because then we do want to see it. We're going to hit apply. So now all the red ones are just going to have a red dash, and then all the green ones are going to have the value. You can start to see how your eyes instantly go to where the values are, right, in the green. So you can start to see how you can make things, okay, well, the 6B might be more interesting to me, or the Euro Aussie, or the Pound Aussie. These things are going to be more along the lines of what I want to look for because I've made those cells pop, right? I made them stand out. You can also do it where if it's below a certain value, so if you want to say if it's below 30, then, you know, make it green. If it's above 70, make it green. And then if it's anything in between, leave it red. You can do that too. So it really depends on what you're after. You can add as many cell criteria as you want, and then you can create all your rules or your trigger rules as well as your general colors for them. So that can be really handy. You can have multiple indicators. So let's just say you run stochastics or MACD or something else. Then you can have them all on this table, and you can have which ones turn green. And then maybe you're looking at your market analyzer going, okay, well, I want to see all the rows that have a whole bunch of green. You can do that too. Now, this is where we get into filters, right? Filtering out stuff we don't want to see. So we can go into our filters. We can add in a filter. And here it says, okay, well, hide row if the value equals something. So if the value is going to be equaled to a dash, which is our red, then we can remove it. We can filter it out. So let's just hit apply. Okay. I'm assuming it's using the number, not the text value. So let's try this again. Let's go and we'll say anything less than or equal to 60, because that's what was the equivalent to the dash. Let's press OK. We'll hit apply again. Press OK. And now we're going to right click on this and we are going to say row filter. Okay, now what we are left with is only the rows that were green. So, you know, to some extent, the red cell conditionings never even had to be there. But there will be times where you'll have multiple rows and you may still want to see that red there because you'll still see certain columns being red, even though your filter conditions are set to be true or positive. So this will automatically update as we go along, as you can kind of see it doing. And this will be pretty useful. Now, where this can get interesting is, let's just say you want to add a column that isn't an indicator. So some of these are really going to be useful and you'll want to go through them. Some of them, there's not a whole lot to do. For instance, I will show you one, which is, where is it? Days, I think it was days until rollover. Yeah, here it is. Days until rollover. So we hit apply. This is going to add another column. So we have our RSI and we have our days until rollover. And you can see that there's a column added in here. It's probably not, I'm just going to drag this over so that you can see. And because these are all FX pairs, we're not seeing any days. So let's right click on that and we will turn off our row filter. And now you can see the days again. So there's how many days until the rollover. So something like that could be useful. If it goes underneath 3 days or something, maybe you might want to turn that red so that it stands out and gets your attention. But yeah, you have many different columns. You can also have multiple different market analyzers. So maybe you have one for your short-term trades and you have another for your long-term trades. You can do that too. So let's go back to columns and we'll pick a row or a column that has more to do with something that could be a little bit more interesting. So we actually have an indicator of our own I'm going to use. So I'm going to add an indicator and I'm going to pick our XT performance tool. This is a free tool that looks at your performance from within a NinjaTrader chart. You can go to our website if you want it, XABCDtrading.com, and it is going to show you the performance of your system on that chart. Taking account your data, it's basically an overall health score, and it's going to, here, let me just show you a quick tip. So up at the top, you have these little divider lines in your header. If you double click on them, it will automatically move it over. And so we can try to resize these a little bit better just by double clicking on them. And you can now see our performance data. So this is the performance data on our chart, your overall health score. And you can go to your chart and actually add the indicator there. And it's going to tell you your green, yellow, and red colors for if everything's good, if there's a warning, or there's something really critical that you need to know. So you can go there and figure out what this is. But let's just say instead of having right now, it's on CPU performance. You can have it, or it's on overall health. You can have it on lag time. So if there's any chart lag between your current system's computer as well as your timestamp that's on your data feed provider's candlesticks and quotes that are sent to you. So this is what we're comparing, and that tells you if there's any lag time. This is going to look at also if you have poor execution or something like that because of lag. So there's also your CPU usage, there's this usage, there's a whole bunch of different stats in here that you can add into your market analyzer. Lag time is probably going to be pretty popular, or the CPU usage, memory usage, your overall health, that sort of thing. It's also going to be pretty useful. So you can add something like this into your market analyzer. So maybe you have a market analyzer that has all of these, and it's like your system resources, and it's just a market analyzer devoted towards that. And then you have another market analyzer that's for all your trading. So there's a lot you can do with this that will help you do that. Now, we were talking about finding opportunities in the market and how we can get to present you with more opportunities. And we kind of touched base on that with our RSI, and if it's above 60 or if it's below 60, but it's definitely something you want to probably add more to in order to make it more complete. So just remember, the more we do this, more we integrate with other indicators and have more conditional formatting, that sort of thing, we are going to want to get involved with alerts. Okay, alerts are going to be your next big thing, that when something happens, you get an alert for it. And that is going to save you a lot of time, and it's going to let you have in there a lot of things that you're going to want, which are, what happens when an alert goes off and how are you going to get notified to it, that sort of thing. So let's start expanding this a little bit more. Now there's an indicator we have. I'm just going to use it as an example. You can use any one you want, but it essentially looks for patterns in the market. And what I'm going to do as we configure this next little bit is just remove a lot of these contracts until we get to the point where we have this configured the way we want. Now, I will say saving these things as you go is going to be very important, because if you've misconfigured something and it takes a little bit longer or something, like, there's going to be reasons why you may want to go back and, okay, well, especially as you're learning this, you realize that some of your configuration mistakes should have been made and you want to go back. Templates. Okay, so right click on your chart, go down to templates, and don't use the save as default yet. Just go to save as, and you can call it whatever you want. You see I have a bunch in here. Some of them are named after themes. Some are just test configurations I've been working on, but you can definitely just save as you want, and that way you can load it up. Now I want to point out to you this one little thing that nobody sees, so don't blame yourself if you never saw it. It says save instruments. This will save your instruments into the templates. I actually don't recommend people click that. I think what you should have, and the way to go about doing this, because if you made a configuration mistake, you don't want all those instruments to load up the wrong thing, is once you saved it, just to have your instrument list all figured out the way you want, and then you just have to right click and just add the list. And that way you don't have to worry about saving it into the market analyzer either. So we've removed some of these. We've gotten the market analyzer a lot smaller, so it's not going to take up much resources. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to go down to columns, and we are going to look for one called XD patterns. Now, right now, this is already pre-configured for a 5-minute chart. It has all my settings, just like my indicator that I would want to see. And then if I come down to my conditions, I already have all these conditions built in. So if you use our software, we actually have templates for the market analyzer that we give you, as well as our workspaces that hold all your alerts that are already set up. So you don't have to set this up manually, but you can imagine that if you had your own indicator, there's going to be a little bit of setup time to it. You want to make sure that that's going to be done once, saved in your template. And then all you have to do is, if you go back to this screen where your indicators are, there's a preset that you can go down to, hit preset and save. And that way, every time you open up another one of these, it opens it up with the same changes that you just made. Okay. So we have a 5-minute up here. I'm just going to hit apply. All those, there's 27 conditions for the cells. All those cell conditions are going to take effect. They're basically looking at a bunch of different patterns, and then once the pattern's found, it's going to be displayed here. Otherwise, it's going to be purple as a background. So if we just go into our columns and we look at these cell configurations, we're going to be looking at a whole bunch of them, but you can see that this one is purple, and we have a background color. Now, this is one of my pro tips for making the market analyzer look really good, is you can actually use these web hex values to get the exact colors you want. And if you click this down arrow, these are normally the colors you get to choose. And yes, there's lots of options there, but if you want it to look good, you're going to need to have more options than that. And there you can see some here. I have a yellow that I really like, that's also in a hex value. And you can make these columns different colors. So as I was saying, I like making it look nice and look good. So one site I recommend, you can use any of these, are going to be like color palette sites. Now what these look like, let me just load one up here for you. Yeah, this is probably the one I like the most. This is called colors.co, or coolers. I don't know how you'd pronounce it, but whatever. Let's just accept this. And you can see that there's a whole bunch of different trending ones that you can click on, and you can pick whatever you want. And I think these look great for the market analyzer. Guess which one I picked? So there's ones here that you can use. You can pick different ones that you might like. Maybe you like the different hues of pink. Whatever it might be, this one's nice down here. I like this. You can pick a whole bunch of different colors on them, and this is what's going to make it look nice, right? So you can get these color codes, and then once you have it, you can just come over here and you can pop it into your cell conditions to have a background that looks actually really nice. So you just double click on, like for instance, it's normally a color that's already readable. So we can just double click on this, and then what we're going to do is type pound, and we're going to put that number in there. And then when we click off of it, you'll see the color appear, and we have that nice shade of pink. Okay, so that is how you're going to make it look good. And you can go through and you can make, for instance, every pattern that we have has a number associated to it. So you'll see basically a whole bunch of numbers instead of actually seeing -1. -1 represents a bearish RTP2 pattern. +1 in our software represents a bullish RTP2 pattern. So that's how we do it. And then you can change the color coding so that it all looks great, and that pattern will pop up and you'll see that color. So what I recommend are dark backgrounds for the background part, and then light colors that will pop up and show the pattern or whatever it is, your alert for that instrument that you are looking at. So what we're going to do once we're done that is add in all the columns or all the time frames that we use. So you might not use time frames, you might use something else, but I like using tick charts, minute charts, even daily charts. If I'm not trading that big, most of the time I'm not, it's still nice to see the overall bigger direction that I think it's going. And then I can look for, and this is the whole point of the market analyzer, is to be able to see all of that at a glance. So what we'll do is we'll bring this market analyzer away. We'll close that website and we'll move our control center of the way. Now this is where we start to get into something that you can probably more understand. So this is what we've been working towards. So if you go into my columns, you'll now see how this works. So we have a whole bunch of different instruments here. Basically these are all indicators that are set up. And my first one is going to show me all the patterns that happen on 100 tick. And then my second column is going to be the same, essentially the same column, except we're not saying if there's a pattern there or not. We're actually going to put the risk versus reward. So are we likely to make twice as much as what we're risking, or what's our 2-to-1 ratio, or what is our risk versus reward ratio for that pattern? And then the next one says how many bars are we going to have within that pattern, so we can know, if the pattern's big enough, that sort of thing. And I can do this for my 100 tick, my 300 tick, my 5 minute, my 15, my 30, my 60, my 4-hour daily. And then I get out to my mini charts. So this is just one of the columns here that you might find handy. I like having it on a daily. So you can go into, where's it, chart mini, and then you can add that to your, double click into your configuration. You can come down here where it says time span, and you can put it on 1 minute, 5 minute, 15 minute, just to get an overall idea of a trend. I'm going to remove that because I already have it. And then I do have my performance for my overall health, just to make sure everything's good there. So that's about it. That is going to be how you configure all your columns. Now, I had mentioned before about alerts. Alerts are not saved as part as your market analyzer. That's very important to know. Alerts are not saved as part as your market analyzer template. They're actually going to be saved in your workspace. And the reason behind that's pretty logical, even though you might be confused by it. Let's just say you had a chart that was open. You want to be able to set up an alert there. So you want to go into your alerts off your chart, or you might want to pull them up from your market analyzer, or you might want to pull them up from within a different area of NinjaTrader. So your alerts are actually stored for your market analyzer, for everything, your chart everywhere, inside of your workspace file. So when we set up alerts, make sure that you're also saving your workspace file. And I would recommend saving into a sort of a test workspace until you get it the way you want, and then you can use that as your main workspace. And of course, back things up in case you ever had to restore NinjaTrader. You don't want to have to redo this all over again. So let's right click and we're going to go down to where it says alerts. And you can see I have a whack of alerts already set up. So this is going to cover you for every time frame and every pattern. And it was a bit of a pain to set this up, a couple cups of coffee, that sort of thing. But it was done once, and it's saved me hours, days of time. So highly recommend setting up your alerts. The way this works is you basically add an alert at the bottom. And this is going to be your basic alert setup where you have it enabled, and then you have your name of your alert and what it applies to. So does it apply to everything or only certain instruments? I would say all is probably what most people are going to pick. Your rearm type is going to be interesting because, for instance, if I had a pattern that showed up and that pattern expired after, like, let's just say 15 bars or something, I don't need to see it anymore, then my rearm time might be, if it was a minute chart and I wanted 15 bars, that would be 15 minutes. So my rearm time is going to be a choice. I can have it on a timer when the bar closes, on the condition being reversed, or on connect when I connect to NinjaTrader. So I use a timer a lot of the time, and then it says how many seconds. So I put in how many seconds would be in 15 minutes for 15 bars on a 1 minute chart, right? So you have to figure out how many seconds. And then once you have that done, then you can add in your conditions. So what are your conditions for your alarm? So for my, let's go down to a 5 minute. So my 5 minute equals a numerical value, right? So the pattern value of, let's just say -1. So whenever a pattern comes out that's -1, maybe you're using RSI and you want to have it where if it's greater or equals than 70, then you're going to put the value 70 and you're going to choose greater or equals, and you're going to select RSI as your column. So once you have all these alerts set up, depending on what you do, it might be very quick and basic. It could be also pretty advanced. You will be able to select that and just press OK. So I have all mine in here. I've gone through, I've configured them. Now you can right click in, well, let's do this first. You have the name of it, of your alert, and then you have the priority, which is going to be for your alert log in NinjaTrader. That's a different topic for another day, I guess. And you would have your background color that would be in that alert log, and then you would have your actions. So your actions are going to be to show a pop-up box, to play a sound. There's a whole bunch of things you can do, but you can go to templates and you can save that as default this time, and then those actions are going to be the same default setup each time you add a new alert. So that can be handy and a huge time saver. So those are your alerts, and then we can go ahead and we can add in more different actions if we wanted to. So submit an order, depending on what's happening, allows you to automate trades even more. So there's a whole bunch of things that you can do there with your market analyzer, as well as with your alerts together. So that's going to save you a ton of time in order to do it. It is going to take a lot of configuration to get things up and running, depending on how advanced you have. And it's also going to probably take you some time, if you go into your columns, to look through all of these to figure out which ones you want. So some of the ones that I think are going to be useful to you, we've kind of already talked about them. I don't need the bid ask price, but if you wanted a current price in there, you always could. But I like the mini chart. I find that useful over like a net change value. I do also like the days until rollover. And one of my favorites that we started talking about was the notes column, just to be able to add in notes. And that's down here. And then also the indicators one, to be able to pick some of my indicators I use, like the performance tool that we released. It's a free one if you wanted to add that in there, but it's specifically coded to work with Market Analyzer. Not every indicator will, but all the NinjaTrader ones I believe do, as well as ours do as well. Once you have that done, obviously our pattern indicator is one that I use. We make that our own column because it is going to be so much more efficient and quicker. So that way, if you use our pattern software, you'll see it's a lot more snappy than anything else. And it's because we've done all these performance metrics in order to speed things up and to optimize things. So that's going to be one that I'll add in there as well. But I don't need too many because I'm going to be using that one extensively all across the top. And then having like your notes or your little mini chart, your performance, that can be helpful too. So there you go. I told you all my color tricks, how to make it look nice. We've gone through different sell conditions, alert conditions. We've basically done a lot of different configurations here that we could do with our market analyzer. I don't know if there's any others that we need to talk about, but you can definitely go ahead and browse through. If you have any questions about the market analyzer, go ahead, post them in the comments of this video. I'll definitely be there to help you out and answer each and every one of those.